Hey everyone, Chris here. In this video, I'm going to talk about how I completed my first 100k run. Now, just to warn you off the bat, it's just me sat on a sofa talking. There isn't any live action shots. So if you prefer that kind of thing, there are other videos on my channel that you might want to go look. The 7 triathlons in 7 days is one I would recommend. For this one, if you want to follow my journey, it is just me sat here talking, but might be interesting anyway, and you can use the chapter markers to navigate around. So I've been chasing this kind of 100k target for a couple of years now. Just as we went into COVID lockdown, I did my first 24-hour race and I made it to 86 kilometers. I just wanted to see how far I could run, and at 86 my hip gave out and I had to give up. It wasn't a pretty scene. By the end I was limping and it hurt so much I had to limp a bit and then sit down and wait for the pain to go down and then keep limping. Definitely not a strategy I would normally recommend in any kind of race, but we'd just gone into lockdown, all racing was cancelled, and so I thought, well, I'm going to carry on even though it hurts and just see how far I get because there's nothing else on. Normally, any other time I would say, listen to your body. If that happens or other races pull out, it's just a freak accident that there were no other races due to COVID. So after that, a couple of times that I wanted to try the 100k thing. I booked Race to the Castle. It got postponed for a year, then it got cancelled entirely due to the storms damaging the forests in Northumberland, making the trail unrunnable. Then I went to God's Own Backyard Ultra, had to pull out at 73k for that because it was the same day as Eurovision, which sounds like a really bad excuse, but I was hosting a party for Eurovision, that's why I had to go. So that leads us up to this race, which is Trinity Harriers. We're running a 24-hour run challenge. So there was 10 teams, 4 people on each team, and we all had to run as far as we could, and the winning team was the one that got the most distance overall. So I thought, well, I'll go out, I'll try and run at least 60k, maybe I'll get further though, maybe I'll hit that magical 100. Came up with a strategy for the race, and it was a midnight to midnight race, so kind of end of Friday, start of Saturday. The clock started and it ran till the next day on till midnight on that Saturday. So I thought, okay, well, I really fancy running the whole time, so I'll stay up till midnight, I'll run for 2 hours, then I'll go and try and get 6 hours sleep, and then I'll get up and do another 2-hour block for parkrun, so I can work into parkrun. It was my 300th parkrun, which was really exciting as well. And then I'll come home, have a bit of a rest, and try and do these kind of 2-hour blocks or 1-hour blocks, depending on what's kind of suiting me. And then between those blocks, I'll have a meal and I'll have snacks out with me. So in terms of the equipment, pretty standard running gear. So I wore my tri-shorts because they're skin tight. I've used them for Ironman distance races. I know they can go all day. And so I'll put those on under my leggings, and then just a standard t-shirt. And then I took my running pack with me so I could have 2 drinks bottles. I think I just took one and filled it with kind of energy drink, eventually moved over to caffeinated energy, but most of the day I was just on that. So that was my strategy, but then we got to actual race day. It was really beautiful running at midnight. I thought I'd kind of have the place to myself, but actually for the first hour, there was quite a bit of traffic. There was cars, taxis bringing people home from the nightclubs. There was other people out walking, and then from the kind of 1 till 2, then it was nice. It was really beautiful. Not entirely dead, but pretty silent, pretty dark. Had my head torch with me. I was running around streetlight areas anyway, but it was still useful to have that, and just really peaceful. But towards the end of that first 2-hour block, I had some stomach issues, and those kind of stomach cramps stayed with me throughout the night. So I got home at 2, really needed a bathroom break, and then tried to get some sleep, but ultimately couldn't get much sleep because my stomach was hurting. So I got up at 8 o'clock, tried to get some toast down me. It kind of worked okay. Went and did parkrun. I think I had some Imodium at that point as well. Came home from parkrun, cooked a nice hot lunch, and really it was like chicken and bacon and lettuce and toasted bread, and really nice sandwich. I so did not want to eat any of it, but I found once I bit into it, then my hunger came back a little and I was able to eat maybe 2/3 of it. And after that, I started to feel better. I was starting to feel a bit tired by that point, but at least my stomach had settled down, and that was the main thing that worried me. And then I decided from then on, I'd go on kind of 1 hour blocks. So I had about a 10K loop, and at first I was actually doing it 1 hour, but as we kind of got up to the kind of 60, 70K total, I was starting to struggle. So I'd done like 22K overnight. I did about 20K around for parkrun, and then did 3 of these 10K loops. So by that point I was up to 72 kilometers. I was pretty happy with that. Set off on my 4th loop, got about 3K in. So I'm 75K in by this point, going up a hill, and I started to feel dizzy. And so I dropped it down to a walk. And then I was like, oh, if I'm dizzy, this is a bit dangerous. Like, I need to take care of myself here. So I kind of turned around and thought, well, I'll walk home, but I'm still dizzy. So decided, actually, I'll sit down by the roadside on the grass. I'll eat my emergency Haribo and I'll see how I feel. Still didn't feel great after that. So I did the kind of boring adult thing, phoned a taxi and got the taxi to take me home. Obviously, I've paused my watch at this point. Pretty disappointed, but I hadn't given up at this point. So I went home, cooked pizza. I had a series of meals prepared to keep me going. Managed to eat about half of this pizza. And then I thought, well, at some point I was always going to start this kind of 1K loop just around my house, so that if I had any further stomach issues, I'd be maximum 500 meters away from my house and my bathroom. And so I thought, well, can't do much running if I'm feeling a bit lightheaded, but I can probably walk a couple of times around this loop. And again, I thought, I'll just see how far I get. Maybe I'll get 25K. That would be a lot of loops, but maybe I'll at least get something and keep building up the distance, and hopefully my team will get that distance. So I did around 14 loops, came back, had another rest, had another meal, tried to eat some more of the pizza and some more of the sandwich that was still sitting around there, tried to eat anything else, went out, did another 10K, a little bit of running mixed into this. Wasn't feeling too bad, but still, every time I started to push it, I was really, really strained and a bit lightheaded. So any time of that, straight down to a walk, just kept walking. Had another bathroom break. At this point, I'm like 96 kilometers. Went back out thinking, just need another 4 loops. We're at nearly 11 p.m. by this point, and just need another 4 loops. Tried to run a little bit, was too tired by this point, but I thought, okay, worst case, I'll just walk these 4 loops. And maybe I'll get an energy burst towards the end to kind of think, wow, I've actually made 100K. That didn't happen. I just pretty much walked the whole thing because I was so tired by this point. Finished about 11:30, and I was almost in disbelief at this point. Like, I kept, because I'd recorded each running block as individual activities, I was kind of getting a calculator out on my phone and adding all of the distances together, because I had this kind of nightmare of adding it together the next day and be like, oh, I only ran 99.8, I never actually made 100. Thankfully the maths did add up, and I had done over 100,000 steps. I'd burnt nearly 10,000 calories, and so there I was finished. By this point I had like 6 cans of Red Bull, so went home, tried to get some rest, tried to sleep. That did not work because I was so wired on caffeine. But as tired as I was, I felt great for finally making it. So looking at the results then, it was a clear win for Team Cool Runnings. I think if you look at their list, there's some great team names on there. Really enjoyed that. But we were way out ahead in terms of distance. In fact, the second place runner was my teammate Joanne, who clocked up 62 kilometers. She ran a marathon in one go. She had some midnight running. She had a couple of walks later in the day as well. Really impressed by that. And my teammate Oren also ran at least a mile, sometimes longer, every hour. So he was literally running for the 24 hours, just doing these mile or so at a time. And he clocked up the 4th most distance. So Team Cool Running really crushed it there. In terms of my reflections on the race, I was thrilled to get my first 100k in the bag. It was kind of 3 years ago that I did the 86k, and ever since then, been kind of looking for opportunities to do it. It's never quite worked out. Finally, it did. So that was great. And I just feel incredibly grateful as well, because 2 weeks before this, I came down with COVID, and I managed to dodge it all of this time. Like, that was the first time I had COVID. I was worried how long would my lungs take to recover. A lot of people were talking about months, and even long COVID going on even longer. Luckily, that didn't happen. I had a week in bed. I had a week back up and around recovering, and then I was able to do this. So I'm really grateful that I was able to recover so fast. I think I've had 4 vaccinations now, so those really helped. But yeah, just really grateful for the opportunity to have the body that can do these kind of things. And the other thing that I think really helped was I really focused on my technique for the whole time. So I was out of the 23 and a half hours, I was only moving for kind of 11 hours of that, but still quite a long time. And what I really focused on was core strength, because I noticed if I didn't do that, I'd kind of bend forward from the waist, and that would maybe put a bit more load on my legs and on my hips, and maybe that's where I kind of picked up that injury when I did the 86k. And so really trying to run upright, any bending forward should come from the ankles and not the waist. So really focusing on running tall and keeping steady at the waist, I think really helped. So that's my story of how I made my first 100k. If you've enjoyed this video, then please give it a thumbs up. If you want more running stories, triathlon stories, that kind of thing, then hit that subscribe button, because this is what my channel is all about, and I would love to see you in another video.